This is Glambition Radio, episode number 245 with Linda Rose, author of Get Acquired for Millions.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. Have you ever thought of building your company to eventually sell it? What's so interesting about working with so many women entrepreneurs for years and years and years and hundreds of business owners is they don't often have the asset-based thinking that many men entrepreneurs do. And so, ladies, if anything from the interview today with the fantastic Linda Rose, I want you to up your thinking to asset-based thinking. I did a whole session on this last year at my iconic workshop and getting the women in the room to think about what is your possible end game? How can you multiply by 10, 20, 50 your business? What's your exit strategy? And I hate those words because I like end game better. And then it's never the end, is it? So there's just so many possibilities and ways to think about things. And, you know, we do this at The Trust. We have women in there actually who have created technology for their own company, for example, and then realize, wow, other people in my industry could use this. I'm going to create a separate company that owns this tech and then licenses it to other business owners in my industry. And then suddenly they have another company that they could build to sell. There's always a way in what you're creating and the type of business you have. There's always a way to create this asset-based thinking. And by the way, if you would like my help with this personally, I have room for 2 more premier clients this year. What is premier? Those are the clients that work with me individually for an entire year. We are in ongoing communication to get you where you want to be by the end of this year. It is not a group program. It is not, I don't even like calling it a program. There's no formula. It is having me as your private advisor for the year. And I'm mentioning this because I have room for just 2 more clients. And it's a special breed that I work with. And if you're hearing this and you're thinking, you know what, I'm in the 7 or 8 figures, or ladies, if you're on track, if you know that, geez, I'm close, or I know if I just had one great launch or one quick move that I know was the real deal, I would be there. Or your business has huge potential, or you have a proven platform, reach out. Just reach out. Go to alliebrown.com/advisory. And there's a brief form there. Fill it out. If you qualify, my team would be happy to talk with you and we could see if we're a fit. But what some women don't realize is I also do these one-time strategy sessions, and we do a VIP strategy day. I've had people fly in from all over the world to meet with me for a single day, and we dive into everything you're doing. We unpack it, get it up on the wall. We look at all the possibilities, and nothing gets me more excited when we flip to this asset-based thinking, and suddenly they walk out just differently. They walk out knowing their end game. They walk out with so excited to maybe launch this company, sell it, turn this around, go do this, build a philanthropy arm. Like they just start. It's so much bigger than how most of the women think, right? Most of the women out there are building the business as income, which is fine. We're great earners, the women, but I want you to convert to this asset-based thinking. And that is why our guest today is Linda Rose. And I'll tell you, I got a referral to Linda last year. And as you all know, I'm not easily impressed with pretty much anyone. I'm just, I've seen it all, been around too many times, ain't my first rodeo. And I get into Linda's book and I talk to Linda and I'm blown away. And I actually said, would you mind being one of our special guest advisors for the trust on one of our private webinars to walk these women through what they should be thinking about to grow their business to sell? And I had great expectations. I was open. Linda came on. They were blown away. They are still talking about this session that Linda did for us, talking about these value maximizers and things that you should be thinking about that we had never thought about. And there are things that you would do differently if you know you're building your business to sell. And so it's very important to know the difference. Now, her specialty is with tech companies, but there's so much you can learn. And everyone walked away blown away. And I wanted to bring her to you today to kind of just up-level your thinking for 2021, because this is the year. Of all the years, the energies are here to support you in these incredible new possibilities. We are going over that bridge into a new time and a new place. And listen to this interview from that platform, please. Let me tell you a bit about Linda. Her book is, by the way, you got to pick this up. It's called Get Acquired for Millions. And she works with business owners to design the most lucrative exit strategy for them as far as mergers and acquisitions. And so she gets into essential questions on valuation, buyer types, the selling process, maximizing value. I mean, it is nitty gritty, like nothing I've seen. So great book. Her story is fantastic. I'm going to let her tell you on the interview today. But you know what I love the most? We got into this the interview, and I did not realize. I know she loved hiking, and she had done the Pacific Coast Trail, but she went on a solo journey, kind of like an in the wild thing, for like 45 days by herself. It's fantastic. You have to hear this part if you don't hear anything. You're going to love it. All right. Then a shout out quickly to two reviews my team pulled for me. NJ Dancer Chick. Love this podcast. As a busy business owner and mom, I don't have a lot of free time, but I enjoy listening to this podcast in the car. The information is great for all, but especially women. This podcast is just the thing you need sometimes. It's everything from the swift kick you need to move and take action, and the tenderness and compassion needed in business, and the wisdom and inspiration for launching the next big thing. Thank you, Allie. Thank you. And Jenny Solund, she's from the US, my favorite podcast. I have to confess, I'm not a big podcast listener, but I keep coming back for more Glambition. Allie has the most amazing guests, and the conversations are more than just information. It's inspiring and a glimpse into what is possible, not only in business, but life. Thank you so much. And then a quick reminder that this show is sponsored by The Trust, the modern network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs and leaders. We are getting ready for a fantastic year. We just had our kickoff call and I was in tears. These women are feeling so fired up and so full of possibility. There was not an ounce of negativity on that call. They are, I have to tell you that I gain so much from those calls with them and who they are being and who they are becoming. And if you would like to learn more and join us, I'd love to tell you about it personally. I'm going to be hosting a private informational call on Wednesday, February 3rd at noon Eastern. And if you qualify to be part of the trust, you can come join us for this call and see if it'd be a great fit for you going into this year. The energies are incredible. You need to be surrounded with the women who are vibing at this high frequency and doing incredible work. Such diversity, such varied industries. I don't quite know of anything else out there like this, and that's why I created it. So you can learn more about that call and apply to join us at jointhetrust.org/private invitation. jointhetrust.org/private invitation. And I'll be walking you through why I decided to create this. What is it about? What type of women are in the trust? And what are the events that we have planned for 2021? Jointhetrust.org/private invitation. Now we're going to up your thinking to asset-based thinking with Linda Rose. Linda, where are you right now?
Well, today I am in sunny San Diego and it's going to hit 72 degrees today. I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah, because it's been a little cold there before.
Yeah, we had a couple cold days, but it lasts very long in San Diego. It stays pretty nice. I can't complain.
Yeah. Such a great area. We came out there 3 times this summer. we did 3 different road trips to California and we ended up in Coronado.
Wonderful place.
So cute. Just so cute down there. We ended up doing a lot of exploring in like Old Town, and I really got to know the area a lot more, and we loved it. And I was thinking of you, but you were up at one of your other homes gallivanting somewhere.
Yeah.
Or in Hawaii at the time.
Hawaii, probably.
Yeah, living the dream. And speaking of the dream, I wanted to have you on this show. I've had you come speak for my private group for the trust, and they are still talking about the time they had with you several months ago when you really came in and walked them through things to be thinking about and considering if they would like to sell their business one day, building up maximum value, just such a wealth of information. You have your book, Get Acquired for Millions. But I'd love to start back with a bit about your story because many of the women listening today will be new to you and your work.
Sure. Well, my story started as being an accountant. 7th grade, decided I was going to be a CPA. I had no idea what that meant. My mom was not educated. We both immigrated to this country when I was very, very young. And so my mother cleaned houses and she was a governess. And so every summer I would, tag along because I had nothing better to do. And she didn't want to let me be home alone, which is the right answer. And so she worked for a family that had a Mercedes-Benz, a Porsche out front, gorgeous house, and 2 Irish setters. And this is so true, Ellie. I was in 7th grade. I was in between career choices. And I said to my mom, what do these people do for a living? And my mom said, well, Andy's a CPA. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what I want to be. And thankfully,
sign me up.
So I know, right? Sign me up. And thankfully I was good with numbers because you know what? I never deviated from that course. And rushed through college, got my undergraduate degree in accounting, my master's degree in tax, ended up at one of the big 8 accounting firms, which now there's only 4, maybe there's only 3. I don't know. I don't keep track anymore. And thought for sure I was going to be a partner. That was my thing. And then guess what happened? I met my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but I worked on a project for him. And I'm like, you know what? I like this guy. And it was really hard for me back then to find men that could tolerate me. Because I had, ideas and all this kind of stuff. And he was just great. And so I thought, you know what, this man's worked really hard. He's been with the firm for 12 years. He's up for partners. I don't want to wreck that. And we had a very serious policy within the firm that you couldn't date, let alone get married. So we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. We've been together now 33 years. And I guess it was a good decision that I left and he stayed. He didn't end up becoming partner, but I left and just decided, you know what? I don't want to be a CPA anymore because guess what? I'm working 400 hours of overtime every year. And I didn't know what it meant to have a weekend off between January and April 15th. And I really wanted to learn how to ski. And that was really the kind of time you would go ski. So I decided, you know what, career change. But actually how that really happened is I became pregnant and became quickly unemployed because we started a recession back in the 1990s in Southern California. And my area of expertise, even as an accountant, was real estate. And so I found myself without a job and 6 months pregnant. And honestly, nobody wanted to hire me, Allie. I was really up for going back to a full-time job, but you know what? I was showing and I wanted 4 months off and I was just very unemployable. So I did some gig work, as we call it now. I had some clients from the firm that said, hey, come on out. We'd love to have you do some work for us. And I did that all the way up until I had my son. And then I took 4 months off. And then I said, okay, I can't be a stay-at-home mom. This is not my thing. I'll go crazy. I felt so bad for uttering those words, but I decided that I also couldn't work 400 hours of overtime anymore. I really needed to have something where I had a little bit more control. And that is truly how I started my career. It was that simple. It was getting pregnant and deciding that I just couldn't go back to a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so from there, I took my skills as an accountant. I became a part-time controller, and then I found myself implementing accounting systems. And then I started a small firm to start implementing accounting systems. And then I started a staffing firm, and then I started a hosting firm. And then I said, oh my God, this is too much. And then I started selling it all. And that was basically my 25 years in the technology space.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how did you transition into becoming seen as an expert on selling a business?
So when I sold my last company, and I sold it to a private equity firm, it was my third and final company. The second company I sold to a national CPA firm, and the first company, which is my staffing firm, I sold that to my partner. So I sold to 3 different types of buyers, and I just felt like I kind of got a good handle on it. And the broker that I used, because I never used a broker before, I used a broker to sell my last company. He said, you know what, you kind of are really good at this. Like, you get the numbers, you get the contracts. Have you ever thought about maybe doing this? And I said, well, I actually thought about retiring, but I don't think it's something I can do, because I was mid-50s when I sold my last company, and decided that I really wasn't ready to not do anything, even though by then I already had my 3 homes and I could kind of rotate between the 3 of them. But, I knew I was going to get bored fairly quickly. And so one of the first things I did after I sold my company, I walked out the door 45 days later, put my keys on my desk and said, okay, see y'all later. They didn't need me anymore. And I donned on a backpack and started hiking 500 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a trail that starts in California along the Mexican border, ends in Washington along the Canadian border. So the whole trail is 2,650 miles. I knew I couldn't do all of that because I started the hike too late in the year, and you got to get through Washington before it starts snowing. But I started my hike like mid-July, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do 500 miles. I think that's probably good. And I used that time to sort of think and get out of the job of being a CEO and get back to being a normal person. And during the 15 to 25 miles a day and 8 to 12 miles hiking nonstop, you got a lot of time to think because you don't have any cellular.
Wow. That actually sounds lovely right now.
It was actually
without the work of it,
Well, yeah,
I'm sure that's not easy, but it sounds, just to be disconnected like that.
And free, right? To figure out my biggest decisions every day were, where am I going to get water? Where am I going to camp tonight? Is it going to be safe? What's the distance am I going to do? What's the weather going to be like tomorrow? Those were my biggest decisions every day. And GPS, that was
You're
it.
By yourself?
I was completely by myself. My husband dropped me off in the woods and he said, I'll see you 6 or 7 weeks later. I did have a Garmin in reach with me, so I had a satellite connection.
Oh my God.
I did check out my gear in advance. I did like a mini little hike around Mount Hood and decided that my shoes were too small and my tent was too small and my stove was too heavy. And, I switched out all my gear. Thank God I did that in my sample hike versus the real long, big hike. But it was an amazing experience, Allie. I mean, I almost lost my life twice, once crossing a stream and once on the side of this mountain that had a bunch of snow on it. In the middle of August, I was up in Washington, but it was an amazing experience. I just will forever stick with me. It was wonderful. And I met amazing people.
I have all these questions that could totally, I want to ask you all these questions about this. I don't want to derail the interview, but let me just think of one that I have to pick one. What about feeling safe? Did you have a pistol or do you know how to fend off a bear? What?
No.
or strange characters in the woods. You don't know who you're going to run into. I don't know. It's too many movies.
You're right. Too many movies. The people that hike these long distances are they're salts of the earth people. They're people that want to be in nature. You can't carry a gun, first of all, because you're going between multiple states and there's just gun carrying laws. And 2, you really need to keep your base weight down. I mean, the goal was to be under 20 pounds without water and food, because you really consume about 2 pounds of food a day and every liter of water is 2.2 pounds. And on average, I was carrying 3+ liters of water, especially through the dry spots and especially through the hot days. And you need to keep the weight down. And so, something like, now I did have a fairly big knife on me and it was under my pillow every night, but I never used it. And my biggest concern was really not people. My biggest concern, especially when I was in Oregon, where the 6,000 cougars that wandered the state, animals, not women. and the bears. As I got into basically Washington, I ran into a couple of bears. And so you really, the brown bears are one thing, black bears are another. But, it was fine. It was fine. And I met people on the trail. And there were nights where I absolutely camped on my own and my senses were heightened. There was one night where I had a big elk that decided to bugle right outside my tent. And I was scared shitless because I didn't know what it was at the time. I realized it later. But, there were definitely nights where you heard things in the night and you're like, oh my God. And then there was one night where I didn't realize it, but I camped in the middle of basically a mice field. Like there were mice everywhere. And they were eating at my tent because I had all my food inside my tent, and they knew it was inside my tent. And it was crazy. Like all night long, I was warding off mice. It was an incredible experience.
So what did you, I think that's your next book, by the way, this whole thing, because I have all these questions, or I'll interview you and we can make a documentary. And so when you came out the other side, were you different? Did you have a realization? What happened?
Yeah, it was different. What really inspired me was that movie Wild with Reese Witherspoon. I watched that movie, and it is about this gal that ends up hiking the PCT. And I actually met the gal that actually wrote the book, but it inspires many people. And by the way, there are people from all over Europe and the world that come and hike this trail. And actually ended up meeting a guy in the Czech Republic, a few years younger than me. So we kind of hiked the same speed, the same amount of mileage every day. And we got to be good friends. We're still in contact with one another today. And, you get a chance to talk about all your fears. You get a chance to talk about all your dreams. When somebody's sharing that kind of an experience, and even people that you just meet on the trail, there's this instant bond, like from all over the world, there's instant bond with people, and you have a new sense of humanity and helping one another and the pay it forward kind of mentality where you would cross a stream and somebody would be on the other side and said, how did you get across? Because, they see the raging water going across the stream, which is now actually a river because of the snow cap, melting off and creating all this runoff, and that you're there to help the other person. It's just so much of this pay it forward mentality, or you find people on the trail that just didn't have enough food to make it to the next, food drop. And so you're sharing your food with them and they're sharing with you where the next water stop is or what the best camping spot is if they're coming the opposite direction.
Just human.
It is.
Human
it
connection.
Is. It's such an amazing experience. But you do come out of that a stronger person because you do test all your boundaries. I mean, I was walking 20, once I got going, I was walking 20 to 24 miles a day, which if you think about it, it's a marathon every day. And that could have anywhere from 3 to 5,000 feet elevation change up and down. It could be raining out. I hiked through thunderstorms. I mean, it was just crazy. I got eaten up alive by mosquitoes as I was going through Oregon. You just come out of it such more of a resilient person. And, I mentioned to you that there were a couple of times where it was really kind of close to, if I did the wrong step, I was a goner. Truly the wrong step, I was a goner. And there was one place in Washington where I didn't have any spikes because I didn't expect to run across snow, and I didn't have one of those ice axes to just, to walk through the snow. But somebody had, several people had gone before me. And so I could go through their steps where they had post hole through the snow, and this trail leads down. But then, then I get to the bottom of it, and then I'm like, well, wait a second, the trail is way up here. So I have to scramble up the side of this mountain. And there is nothing on this mountain. I mean, nothing, no roots, no trees, just shale. And it's a pure drop 1,000 feet down to this crystal blue lake. There is nothing between me and this lake. And I kid you not, it's easily at a 45-degree angle. And I got 30 pounds on my back and I'm losing ground. I am trying to scramble up to the path up top and I'm not getting anywhere. And I just dug in really hard with my poles and my feet. And I sat there for, it seemed like 10 minutes and I cried. And I thought to myself, what the F am I doing here, Linda Rose? And then I realized, you know what? We either make this happen or we die. So just pick. There's nobody else here. It's you, and you just got to do it. And that's where, all the strength comes from that you don't know that you have. And I just climbed and clawed my way up to the leveler part of the path. And, you're alive, right?
Wow.
And you get past something like that, and you come home and you realize the little things that kept you from doing things were so little. They're so little. You just brought it. I mean, you really raise your own glass ceiling. I talk about this all the time where I really feel, and I don't care if you're a man or a woman, we all have our own personal glass ceilings. Yes, there are ceilings that sometimes get laid upon us, especially in corporate America. But I am willing to bet that we have our own glass ceiling that is lower sometimes than the one that's, we see that corporate America puts upon us. And I feel that if you can just do some of these things, get past some of your fears, you can bust through your own ceiling. And that's really what got me into this space because, as I wrote the book, everybody has imposter syndrome. It's like, well, who am I to write a mergers and acquisitions book? Who am I to give advice on this? But then I realized I had been through 3 transactions. I understood contracts. I understood this industry. My book is very niche. It's all about people that are in the technology space, who bill by the hour, who sell software as a service, who sell other people's software. And we have some unique challenges, and we have margins and people and hourly rates and realization and utilization and all this kind of stuff. And I realized, you know what? No one's going to tell this story like I'm going to tell the story. And then I got past the imposter syndrome, wrote the book, and then that just landed me squarely into the whole M&A space.
I love it. What do you feel when you came into this that your advice gives and offers that you weren't finding anywhere else?
There's a difference between running a company to grow it and running a company to sell it. And nobody has been that direct about saying it just in those words. Because when you are getting your company ready to be sold, there are other things you need to focus on. And it's not year-over-year growth, and it's not year-over-year bottom line net income. It's really more about the type of revenue that you're bringing in. It's about your customer satisfaction, minimizing customer churn, minimizing employee churn, and really grooming those people who are going to stay if you decide that you want to move on. Because some people, they sell the company and they stick around for a couple of years for the earnout. And some people sell the company and they want out after 6 months. Well, the buyer wants to make sure that the whole company hasn't revolved around you, that you have a strong management team, you have a strong sales team, you have a strong COO that can execute on the strategies that, interested them about you in the first place. So it can't be all you. You have to make sure that you just build that strong strategic team. And a lot of people don't think about that. They just think about sales and increasing sales every year and increasing the bottom line every year. And it's more than that once you realize what a buyer really focuses on.
What are some things that would have you look at a company and be like, you'll never sell this as it is? Like flat out, like that companies that aren't made to sell, or they're not doing it right.
Owners that can't get out of their own way, where everything revolves around the owners or the chokehold. Nobody can make a decision without the owner's involvement. I really encourage, and I did this really early on, not realizing that it would do this, but I felt that my employees, if they gave me 7 years of their life and they worked, for me, I owed them a sabbatical in addition to their normal vacation. I just felt very strongly about that people need to experience the world. I was always a traveler. And so I think 10 years into having my company, I said, look, if you've worked for me for 7 years, I'm going to give you a month off. But here's the thing, in addition to your normal vacation, right? But here's what you got to do in that month. You got to go and broaden yourself. So that means you either have to go travel, or you have to go learn a new skill or something, right? You just can't stay home and hang out. So some people went on walkabouts in Australia. Other people liked Canada. Other people, I had one lady that just wanted to she wanted to learn how to sup, right? She wanted to sup, stand up paddleboard. She wanted to do it in many different places. I'm like, girlfriend, go do it. If that makes you happy, and do yoga on and be able to teach eventually yoga on sup in her part-time. I'm like, go for it. That's your dream, right? So that's what you had to do. You had to come back. A different person had to share experiences. And so that was the mandate. You let everybody know the year that you were going to do it, but then you also had to give up entirely all of your job responsibilities for that 4 weeks. And if you were in the executive level, I really wanted you to go away for 6 weeks because it was more than a month period. And so what you had to do is there was a 3-month period. You had to prep for that. The first month was you had to write the book out of what you do every day and how that changes throughout the month and what all your job responsibilities are. The second month is we got to figure out the people who are going to take over your job responsibilities and learn new skills. And the third month, the month before you get ready to leave, you do nothing. Okay. That's the way people figure out if what you wrote really works. And, if they have questions. So you do nothing that third month. And then that fourth month, you go on your trip. Because remember, your email doesn't follow you. Like your email was cut off. You don't even get it. You don't even get a chance to read it, right? So, obviously your personal email, but your corporate email got redirected to your next person. And so what that does is first of all, it requires you to delegate down your responsibilities to other people. It requires you to really meticulously put out everything that you do on paper so that everybody understands what you do. And then also when you come back, it also means that you don't have to take everything back on again. And I really encourage CEOs to do that because now they've pushed down all the things that they felt like they needed to do to other people who could do it within the organization. And they come back and they can spend more time thinking about the future plans, strategizing, working on other things. And I don't think if you can stay away from your company with no email and no communications for 6 weeks, then you can exit your company successfully. And that is the test.
Yeah. I love that for so many reasons, but the one that's really sticking with me and I'm actually writing down is that, you always want your team to be writing down what they're doing anyway, right? But this suddenly makes it exciting for them because it's linked to this immeasurable reward of having this not only time off, but you've gotten them to emotionally, engage in something that is a bit of a dream for them. And so as they're working on the checklists and all the stuff that usually you'd be like, can you do this? You're like, yeah, okay. Now they're like, oh, this is part of the process.
And everybody in the organization knows that you're up for sabbatical that year. So everybody's behind it because the people that have gone on it are, so excited for you because they've been through it. And the people that, are coming up for it in the next couple of years, they're excited because they know they get to do it. So we throw a big bon voyage party. We send this person off with, gifts and what depending upon where they're going. One guy, we hooked him up with a huge camera that he always wanted so that he could just take all the wonderful pictures that he was looking to do. I mean, we kind of, gift around the experience. And it's just wonderful. And I mean, how often do you get that opportunity that your organization does that for you?
Yeah. I've not heard of something quite like that. That's amazing. So CEOs who won't get out of the way or owners who won't get out of the way, what other common mistakes do you see that people, that make their business just really unsellable?
Well, again, I work mostly in the technology space, but I think this works across multiple sectors, and that is finding solutions. I'm all about subscription revenue. And there's a great book it's written by John Warlow called The Automatic Customer. It's a great book to read. It's thin. It's a quick read. You can get it done in a weekend. It goes across multiple industries, but he really touches on the fact that you should turn your hourly revenue into some sort of subscription so that you can wake up on the first of every month and know how much money is going to hit your bank account that month if you did nothing, right? It's automatically going to come in because, it's set on credit cards. They're going to automatically pay you. And I don't care what industry you're in. If you sit back and you think about it, there's something that you're doing that could be put on a subscription basis. And I really think it's important that we start thinking like that. And I also think that, of course, now with this whole pandemic, everybody used to working from home and everybody's more into the whole video thing. If you can take what normally took a body to do and you can put that in a video or in a training and sell that instead, you just can grow so much quicker, so much faster because it's not reliant on 40 hours a week of an individual's job, right? I mean, there's only so many hours a week. As my mother said, you can never get rich working by the hour. And that just takes an hourly position and moves it into something much larger.
Yeah. Now, what about the whole profitability thing? Because I've heard, you hear of these companies scaling up fast, they get the funding, scaling up fast. And then, but you find out sometimes they're able to sell for a lot of money, but they were never actually profitable. What's the story of that for real business owners like us who are listening?
It really depends on what it is that you have, what the intellectual property is. I mean, I see biotechs all the time that go public and never had any revenue, right? But it's a promise of something bigger. It really does revolve around the IP and the promise of that intellectual property. And I think those are the kind of companies that can do that. But a normal company that doesn't have intellectual property, I think that's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That's really difficult. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I, the whole time, never took on any debt in any of my companies. Like, no one gave me any money. I never asked for anybody's money. I just was scared to take anybody's money, actually. And I just was anti-debt. Maybe that was the accountant in me. I mean, I had a line of credit for the rough patches, and occasionally I pulled on the line of credit, but it made me nervous when I had anything out on the line of credit. And I'm like, okay, well, let's pay this down as soon as we can. But, cash was always the way I grew my businesses. And yeah, it's just a little bit slower and it's a bit more organic, but there's safety in that. And there's less worry in that. And you can sleep at night with that. And it's more saleable in the end with no debt.
Yeah. I want all of you listening to consider this possibility, though, that even if your business right now may not be in the ideal model for doing this, it could be adapted, or you could start a new arm of the business that could become this. I've had several clients, for example, lately, who are working on tech solutions for their own company, have this light bulb moment and realize what I'm developing for myself, my whole industry could use, right? And then they're creating a new company from that, and going to be doing subscriptions or licensing. Tell us some stories about, some of the people that you've helped. And do you work with mostly women, or is it mixed?
It's mixed. Actually, I come from an industry where it's 98% of the organizations are run by men. I was one of the very few women, although I tend to attract many women in tech, and those I've so far represented more women than I have men in terms of being their M&A advisor. So that's been kind of interesting as well. But, I see here's an interesting story. I somehow connected with this lady out of Denmark who had a brick and mortar store. And like all the countries, everything got closed down due to COVID. And so she decided, she had an exercise studio, but she was geared more towards family and women with young children, right? So that was kind of her gig. And so she had to close it down in March, and she decided to put what she did online and basically sell what she did online on a subscription basis. She became, in just 12 months, Allie, in just 12 months, she has sold about $1.3 million worth of subscriptions online. And what she has created has become so successful that Peloton has reached out to her now and is talking to her about doing an acquisition. I mean, this would never have happened had COVID not happened, right? It really forced her. She got really scared and said, oh my God, my store's closed down. My gym is closed down. But I got to find another way to put food on the table and take care of my 3 young children. And she went online. She put her course online, and she just reinvented herself online. And I just see that more and more with people in one fashion or another.
Yeah. And what are some other types of businesses that you've helped bring to acquisition?
Oh gosh. Well, again, they've been mostly around software and, software as a service or consulting, again, mostly I would call, I hate to throw acronyms at you, but mostly value-added resellers, independent software vendors, managed service providers. That's kind of my niche. That's my niche. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you have several success stories and you have a lot on your website, right?
Yes. Yeah. Those are basically the people I serve. But, I'm working with a company right now that is a marketing company in the tech space. So they're not one of those 3-4 acronyms that I mentioned, but they service that kind of crowd, so to speak. So it's somewhat, horizontal in that regard, but completely like a total marketing firm. And So we're just getting ready, getting our financials all squared away and getting our confidential information memorandum put together, and we'll probably going out the next month or so. But I'm very excited for this company because I think they're going to see tremendous amount of success with people being very interested in what they do.
Wonderful. So tell us more about the book. Well, tell everybody listening about the book because I know the book really well. It's Get Acquired for Millions. Now this is, I know, targeted at tech service providers, but I still got a lot out of it.
I've found that every once in a while, somebody will reach out to me and say, "Hey, got your book on Amazon and I'm like an engineering firm, or I'm this, or I'm that." And I still got a lot out of your book. And again, really the book, I didn't want to sit here and write another mergers and acquisitions book because A, I'm not an attorney, and B, I'm not an investment banker. But I did see some trends, and I did see what it was that buyers were looking for. And I always caution people. I said, look, your success in the past is the past. What you need to do is position your company for the future, because the buyer's not buying the past, they're buying the future, right? They're buying future earnings. And so as I was looking at that and I was looking at the questions that buyers were asking me, I started seeing some themes. And that's what these 8 value maximizers are that I talk about in the book. One of them is how you position your financials. One of them is, the strength of your management team. One of them is, how often are you doing customer satisfaction scores? Because again, when somebody buys you, they want to make sure all those customers stay. Well, one way they're assured that all these customers are going to stay is because they have, you have a great customer satisfaction score rating with them. And trust me, when a buyer buys a company, they're going to want to go out and talk to your top 10 customers. Well, you may have hundreds of customers, but if you can show them that you have these excellent customer satisfaction scores and a low customer churn rate, it's great. Another thing I talk about is single points of failure. And I see this a lot in companies that are under 10 million, where they either rely on one vendor, one customer, or more importantly, one individual that if any of them broke, or if that individual left, it would drastically affect the organization, right? And as you know, it's so hard. I think the first $5 million of any company is so hard because you do have these single points of failure. You do have individuals that have a strong skill set in a certain area. And if for some reason they decided to move on, it would be so hard to replace them, or you don't have anybody else in the company who could pick up and do the work. And especially if you're in a technical space where somebody has some coding skills or has written some of your intellectual property, some of your IP, or has some networking skills, or if you were implementing accounting systems, which is what I did in the beginning, not everybody understands process manufacturing and knows how to implement it. And if you lose somebody that has that kind of strength, that really puts your business in a bind. And that is a problem typically in those earlier stage companies or the under $5 million companies. So I talk about that and how you take care of that. I talk a little bit about how to create your own intellectual property and how to find your own intellectual property. People always think that, intellectual property can be made of a number of things. One of them is your trademarks. Some of it's your copyrights. Some of it is patents, but most people don't have patents unless you're in, a very technical place or a biotech company or a medical device company or something along those lines. You don't have patents. But what you do have is organizational IP. And organizational IP is that intellectual property that gets you humming efficiently, right? So that could be your quote forms. That could be your video library of assets. That could be a number of things that really sets you apart from the competition, but is kind of like your secret sauce. And people don't think about that as IP. And people buy that kind of IP. Yeah. People buy, like my last company that I sold, I didn't have any code that I wrote myself, but what I did have is an organization that focused purely on highly regulated companies that were either SOX, had to be SOX compliant, FDA compliant, other levels of compliancy. And we built structures and formulas and parameters around that really wasn't code, but it was our secret sauce and our IP to keep all our servers running and making sure everything was humming along at its optimal level. And that's what my buyer bought. They bought that, my customer base and my recurring revenue that I had every month. So I talk about all of these things in the book because it's rarely put in that sort of format. Everybody talks about how to grow a company. Not many people talk about how to sell a company.
Yeah.
And not the nuts and bolts of truly selling it, but the 3 years that it really takes most people to get ready for that process.
Yeah. The one that jumped out at me the most, and I could relate to my own experience as well as my clients at these stages, is the single point of failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember hearing years ago that the worst number in any business is one person who knows how to do everything, one vendor that you depend on. And you know what? That actually translates to a lot of life right now, right? For us to be adaptable right now, you know, you don't want your money in one type of account. You don't want like one way to get dinner. You know, it's kind of a good life lesson right now. And that one employee thing comes up so much. Like, what if Fran doesn't come back from her sabbatical? You know, she's swimming with the dolphins and she doesn't want to come back, but she trained the team, right? So
or what if your one customer that represented 20 to 25% of your revenue got bought by somebody else and they don't want your services anymore?
Right.
Or they go BK or whatever. I mean, it you know, it's a customer thing too. And I see that a lot. I've seen many companies where a big bulk of their revenue comes from one customer. And, you know, it's great to land those big fish. I call them the big fish, the big customers. But then those made me nervous too. I'm like, wow, I was never shy to take on the small projects. Sometimes they were more painful, but it really prevented me from having to rely on one big customer. And if that one big customer left, and I think I learned that lesson the hard way over the years, but that's something that you really, really have to think about. And a buyer will see that immediately.
And it's, instantly, I bet. So everyone, you should pick up the book. I'm telling you, even my clients who do not have tech businesses, Linda, your book is more universal than you may realize. I know that it's definitely, you know, tailored to those people, but it's been so helpful to so many of my own clients who are in that, you know, 1 to 20 million range typically. And they start really looking at, okay, what have I done or not done to be ready for this if the opportunity arises, or even better, to strategize to be acquired or sell. So the book's called Get Acquired for Millions. You can get it on Amazon and also on your site, or learn more at Rose Biz Inc. Is that correct?
Yep, rosebizinc.com.
Okay, perfect. Yes. And Linda, to wrap up, can you share just 3 great pieces of advice for all the women listening?
Oh, I would say the first big piece of advice is get your dreams out into the world. Vocalize what your goals are. I don't think, Allie, I would have ever written the book. And I knew this about myself, so I had to do it. I picked the cover and agonized over the title way before I started writing. I knew I wanted to write the book, but you know, anybody that's written a book knows it is not a simple task. It is like birthing a child, right? They say that, and it's so true. And I realized that, you know, if I didn't put it out in the world that I was going to do this, it might never happen. And so, because I knew it was a huge, daunting task. And I think you got to put those dreams out in the world. Somebody gave me a bracelet, and I still wear it, and it says "Dream Out Loud." And I think if you put it out there, then it forces you to make good on that promise to yourself, right? And so my dreaming out loud right now is I'm in the middle of writing a course, which is, it follows a book, but it's different. I've got different ideas about it as well. And it's a lot of work. You know, it's presenting the material, and it's videoing the material, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff and putting together a really good course, but I've got that messaging out there already. It's going to take me 3-4 months to finish it, but I'm going to finish it because I know people are expecting me to do it. So I would say that's one thing. I would say the second thing is it's just kind of get out of your own comfort zone. And, you know, people talk about that all the time. But for me, taking that hike, really putting myself at risk, you know, and I'm not saying go hike for 500 miles, but go jump out of an airplane if you're scared of heights. I think that whole experience will just broaden your mindset of what you're capable of doing. Or, you know, go on a multiple day sailing trip where you're manning the boat with somebody else and you're just crewing, and you're forced to be up at all hours of the night. And I mean, assuming you'll enjoy doing something like that, but, you know, just really stretch your boundaries, because I think you come back and it really stretches you as an individual in your own career goals and what you think and know now that you're capable of doing. And I think the other thing is just be people put their New Year's resolutions out there. I try to keep it to like 3 things every year. That's like, okay, I'm going to accomplish 3 things every year. And then I try to break it down by quarter and say, okay, what are the 3 most important things I have to do each quarter to hit those yearly goals? And then I break each quarter down by month. I'm like, okay, well, what are the 3 most important things I got to do this month to hit my quarterly goal? And then, you just bring it all the way down to a week, right? And it just keeps you focused because can be so distracted by so many things. And I think we all have some great aspirations, but it's just really putting the time and the intention to getting it done. And I think if you really make it a goal to be intentional about your goals, you will achieve them. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. I love this. This was fantastic, Linda. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been so great. I've really, for a long time, wanted to be on your podcast. So I'm so happy I'm here.
I didn't even know that. So glad to have you. And can't wait to meet you in person one day when the circumstances allow.
Yes, we will for sure. Absolutely.
Take care.
You too, Allie. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.